Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new part of the synthesis section of the Parandroid Masterclass 2.0. So, in this video, we'll have a look at the basics of synthesis. I especially chose an accessible synthesizer, wavetable synthesizer in this case, that pretty much all of you guys know already. And by the way, this is part of the preview lessons, so this is accessible on YouTube as well as on instinct-learning.com on the course itself in the curriculum for people to check out some of the courses and see if they would want to do it or not. This part of the course is aimed towards beginners, and we are going to do something rather simple to start out to just make you a bit more familiar with a wavetable synthesizer like Serum. So let's get it on. I just created this patch really quickly. I wanted to create a build-up section, and of course you need an uplifter. Uplifter is a sound, everybody knows it. It's super important to create tension, of course. And there are many ways on how to create an uplifter. Today we're going to have a look at the synthesis route of creating an uplifter. And it's easier than you might think if you never have done it. If you have ever done it, then you know for a fact, wow, it is very easy. So I created this uplifter sound, but let's set it back to init preset, where we have just that neat little saw at our hand. So what I always do when I do this type of pitch lifter, I call it, or riser, I start with one oscillator. That also would be the case on a synthesizer where two oscillators are activated from the get-go, which is actually quite common. Let's pitch that up one octave. So I always switch to just one oscillator. Here we have the oscillator section. We have a couple of different controls, which we will get into, of course. And here you choose which oscillator you want to use. I will have an info sheet about the basics of synthesis, where this also should be covered in more detail. You can refer to that paper, to that learning paper in the curriculum if you are enrolled in the course, and if you have, a lack of understanding about what an oscillator is, then that would be the way to go. An oscillator is a source of sound, basically, and it can be digital or analog, or it can be generated using wavetables. But we want to keep it nice and simple here. So let's first work with this basic saw. Let's not even bother to choose one of the many analog, digital, or spectral waveforms. Just use this to get a deeper understanding of how the synthesizer works. First, what do you need for a riser or an uplifter? It's quite simple. You need a ramp, however you get that. And you would want that ramp to trigger. So that can have different names in different synthesizers. Here it's called trigger, or envelope, sorry. Envelope it's called, I guess. It should be like that. We will see it in a moment. So that every time when you press the keyboard, it will start from the beginning of the wave. But we'll see that in a second, the behavior. Let's take this and drag it nowhere. Because there is actually, I think, let's see if we can do it like that. No. We have to go to the metrics section. You have different tabs here with the Serum. One is the FX section, one is the metrics, and one is the global section. We want to go here on metrics, choose our LFO 1, then set a bit of amount so that we can actually hear it doing something. And then where would we want to send this LFO to modulate? We would want to send it to coarse pit. So that you can hear a steady rise. Because if I instead would take it here on semitones, then it would be stair-stepping. It wouldn't be fluid pitch. It would go from note to note to note. What's the problem here? It's way too fast, of course, so we have to turn that down. The Serum has the option to actually set it in bars, which is kind of handy for uplifters, because you can set 16 bar, 4 bar, 8 bar, 32 bar. So now, when we make it slower, let's make it maybe 8 bars. Now we can actually see how the pitch is rising. So again, you go to the metric section, you go to LFO1, you choose that here, you activate the modulation, you go to oscillator A, cause pit to modulate pitch, and then we were going here. The LFO is set to envelope, so as we can see, it's always starting from the beginning. It behaves as if it would be an envelope. And then we just need to set the speed. Do we want to have it short? Or do we want to have it longer? Or do we want to have it very, very, very long? Those are the options. And this is, of course, like, you know, it's not set to free mode. We'll get into that in a different point. Now, let's go back to metrics for just a little moment. Set that back to 0. So we have our needle saw. Let's take this LFO and go here on sem, which stands for semitones. And then we can you can also hear it, but it's not doing it in the right way. We don't want that. But this is how modulations would work. Let's say we would want the filter to open gradually, okay? Then we would first have to actually also, I think, do the routing, I guess. Activate the filter. Okay, so it's like cutoff is set to 12 Hertz. Let's put that on the cutoff. Now we can see how the filter is opening. So it will modulate anything per drag and drop. Anything that is there. For the things that are not there, we use the metrics to create. Here we can set all kinds of things. So for example, we could, instead of having LFO1 here in the first section on cause pit, we could go to wavetable position, for example, or any other parameter. Yeah, so you have the drag and drop modulation option, which will become important. It's very handy. And you have the option to do stuff in the metrics with a lot more detail. Often you don't need to. But it is, in many cases, very handy. Let's get the timbre a little bit better. Let's bypass that for now with a right click and then choose bypass. We're going here to oscillator 1 and let's have a listen to different oscillators. This is how you do it. We need to open the filter, of course. Also bypass any other modulations. We need something a little bit more thick, so let's go to the digital ones. Yeah, that's more like it. We need to go back to our metrics, put this back to cause pit. Yeah, now it's working again. We had to remove the bypass. Sorry for that. So now we can properly listen to it. Maybe get a couple of octaves higher. Turn that one down to 16. So now we're coming into a realm of many, many different oscillators, and it's really about your taste. I won't tell you which one to choose yourself. You can, of course, choose the same one that I will choose in a second, but it's really, in this case, when you're doing synthesis, when you're switching through the oscillators, go for the one that you like the most, and ideally you memorize those. I kind of like this one, so dist C2, I'm going to remember this. Let's go a little bit more down. Freak. Let's go 1 octave below. I like this one. Let's get a second oscillator in now. So here I'm going to digital dist C2 because I remember this one from before. Oh, it's way too high. Does it get modulated or something? Or is it just goddamn high? Yeah, it's just too high. Okay, so what is the wavetable position? It's basically inside the spectral form. You can switch through the different layers of the wavetable. It's very an interesting parameter to modulate stuff, actually. Not too happy with this one. Let's see if we find something better. Sounds very FM-y. Okay, so like that doesn't sound as I wanted to sound, so I'm actually probably going just with this one. Yeah, and I want to have a falling motion back down here. So let's do that. The great thing with the Serum is definitely how intuitive it is. So I can conceive ideas. So for example, this one. So that it's like slowly turning this parameter back down. Let's try to do that. That actually also sounds quite nice. And we also want that on envelope. Sounds very vanilla, so let's go to the effect section. Let's press on this button here. And this one, maybe less steep. No. Maybe like that. Double click into the LFO to adjust it. Yeah, now we got it. Let's go even 1 octave lower. Let's add a reverb here. And a little bit of that hyper dimension. And a little bit of delay. Let's go to plate. Let's not overdo it. And let's also take LFO1, take it here, and put it on the mix. Let's take this one and put it on our second oscillator. What happens here with the... even so I just switched the oscillator, sorry for not commenting for a second there. And you can, in this synthesizer, really change up the timbre so quickly, right? Because I'm just going 3-4 times here. And you would be somewhere completely else. Let's go and do something else here. Yeah, let's put this on 1/8 and put this on wavetable position. By the way, this blue thing, right? This would be the 0 point, no modulation. This would be plus 100, and this would be plus 100, minus 100, of course. Okay, so now let's try something. Let's go to LFO4. Pull it to the side. Go to envelope. Go to 1 bar maybe. Let's see, we need to see about that. Is there recursive modulation? Is that possible? Should be. Okay, let's go to LFO4. Take the modulator. Okay, getting somewhere. So we have a lot more motion going on now, and this is why it becomes more interesting. Let's also have a look at those knobs here, because they are kind of handy, to be honest with you. Like, you can assign knobs on them, like I just did here with my MIDI controller. Now I can like control this here. And what does it do? Well, it's like a short control basically. So for example, let's put that on the delay, and then we can control the delay here, and we can also call it delay. And you can do that with anything. So, for example, we could also add a phaser. Not really necessary, neither does it sound good, to be honest. So let's maybe not do that. But there's even a compressor here, so... So, I think we created something quite interesting, and I got you a little bit closer with the basics of synthesis with the Serum. I think this was maybe like in between beginner and intermediate in some sections of the video. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them below the video, and I will try to answer them at my best ability. This is, of course, principally a very simple sound that we just made together here, but nevertheless, it is an important sound, and it's something, you know, like a pizza or something like that. It's a simple thing in itself, yet one can do it absolutely world-class fantastic, or somebody can do it very, very plain and boring. So, like, even in a simple element as a riser, you know, there can be a display of some skill and some understanding of the fundamentals of how actually waveforms behave, etc., like that, and how synthesis works in general. Synthesis is a big topic, and if you want to work a lot with your own sounds, or just being able to have that in your toolbox, the ability to create own sounds is never a must, right? You can always choose to use a sample or record something in the real world instead. But I think it's very important as a toolbox, and it's also a very interesting brain sport. And overall, you can say music production and creation of music is sort of a brain sport. So patches can become incredibly complicated and complex in some cases, especially if you go into recursive modulation. So recursive modulation would be things modulating themselves, for example, like an LFO modulating its own LFO speed. You can create some interesting effects with that, and maybe we'll go into more depth about recursive modulation in one of the future videos upcoming for the synthesis part of the Parandroid Electronic Music Masterclass 2.0. So, I hope that you enjoyed it, and I see you guys in the next upcoming episode of the Masterclass. Cheers out, have a great day, don't forget to breathe, and I see you guys in the next one. Peace out.